What is up, good people? I'll be showing you how to fix your Bosch condenser dryer, specifically this heat pump dryer. If yours looks different from this one, do not worry because the principles are going to carry over to many models that look similar or they're based on the same design. They're all based on the same design. So usually when you see it say self-cleaning condenser, it has water that comes up from the top, and then in here you can take out a cartridge that you can clean out usually on those models. But with the self-cleaning condenser one, it doesn't have um, that removable cartridge. You have to actually open up the whole machine and fix it. So I'll be showing you how we can fix it. And if you have a look at this lint filter, all that lint that ends up in the dryer, if you don't clean it up regularly, that ends up getting into the heat exchanger and the condenser. And when the condenser can't do its proper job condensing your air into water, then it starts creating problems in the dryer not drying properly. So you see how important it is to always clean that filter so that the condenser works properly and gets all that water out of the dryer so that the dryer works as intended. So this repair process is definitely extensive, but way, way, way cheaper than calling out a technician to sort out this issue for you. You rather do it yourself and clean out the dryer, save yourself some money at the same time. You're gonna need a couple of tools to do this job. You're gonna need a T30 and a T15 torx bit to unscrew the screws that we need to unscrew. If your dryer is less than 2 years old, I highly recommend that you call up Bosch and have them look at the dryer themselves because it will be still under manufacturer's warranty. But if it's older than that, then definitely have a look at it yourself and try to fix these issues, as they can be fixed and you can save yourself buying a new dryer and you'll be drying again in no time. You actually need a T20 and not a T30. So grab yourself one of these from the hardware store. It looks like this. This is what you'll use. You need a driver with it. If you don't have an electric one, you can get a manual one, which you can use like a screwdriver. But this whole process will go smoother if you have an electric driver, because there's about 30 or 40 odd screws that you have to take out of this dryer. If you don't have a driver, then it's going to be a laborsome process. It can get frustrating to do this repair. It's pretty extensive, but rest assured, if you relax, make yourself a nice cup of tea, coffee, whatever suits you, this repair process you can do it. Follow these steps and you'll be right to go with it. The first step we're going to do is we're going to need to take out this container that collects all the water from your clothes. This container is the one that's covering where the screws go. So there's 3 screws that we need to take off. These screws will be a T15. You want to turn around the dryer so we can access the back. We'll be removing the top cover first. The top cover is held in place by 2 screws, 1 screw on the left and 1 screw on the right. They will be T20 screws, so go ahead, remove those. Put them somewhere where you won't lose them. Very important that you don't lose these screws because they'll be hard to replace and everything will start rattling. Once you've removed them, to remove the top cover, you pull it back and up, and it just comes out. And something that I just want to point out to you guys at this stage of the repair, just have a look at how much lint is already building up in there. So that lint is going to be a fire hazard and it's interfering as well with the airflow in there. So you want to be cleaning up as we go. Clean up, have a vacuum ready with you, cleaning up all that lint as you go so that you keep your work area clean, and also you're cleaning the dryer as you go, so you won't have as big a cleanup when you finish this whole job. What we're going to do, we want to take off these side panels. These side panels are held in place by, at the top, they're T20 screws, and at the bottom, they're T15 screws. And we also want to be removing the back panel. So go ahead and remove the top 2 screws there, or 4 screws that are held in place by T20 bits, T20 screws. Then we will take our T15 and remove the lower ones that are held in place by T15 screws. The one for this back panel with this black cover on it, some of them will be a T20 and the lower ones will be a T15. Something to remember is that the top ones, they are metal on metal, so that's why they make them the T20. And the ones at the bottom, they're T15 and they go into plastic, so it's metal to plastic or plastic to plastic, so they're a bit longer. So that's why they use bigger ones. So go ahead and remove those. Once you're done with those, remove the panel. It just comes out, pull it out and it comes out. And you can see, as I was saying, that your fan here is the one that helps the airflow. And it's good that there's not much lint there, so we're good there. As long as it's nice and clear in all these holes, there's no lint. Next stage is we want to remove this pipe that's holding, this is a drain pipe. So you can either remove it from the top here or from the bottom here. Whichever way you choose will be okay. I think I will remove it from the top. This is where you might need to grab your flat screwdriver and then just give it a nudge, because it's pretty tight fit. There's nothing holding it or clamping it, so it comes out pretty easy, or relatively easy. Set that to the side. Then grab your T15. There's really no need to take that off. We are going to move on to the middle bit here. We're going to disconnect all these screws that are holding the drum. We need a T20. Now there's a circlip here that you can remove. Just get your flat screwdriver, put it in one of the holes in there. So it's almost like a circlip, but it's not really a circlip. And just, ouch, that hurt. Be careful. Yeah, you need a really flat screwdriver. Mine's not flat enough, but I think I can get it done. There we go. Beautiful. It's out. So just put it together with all those screws you removed, and then this comes off. Easy as that. Remember how everything goes together. So this middle bit, that's your metal drum. Top, you want to remove all those screws so that everything is nice and loose. So start with the ones holding the side panels. There'll be about 2 on each side. And if ever you forget where anything goes, you can always just rewind this video and see where everything was before. You want to make sure that all these things are loose before you start trying to pull. There's one more screw on this side. So just have a look over and make sure that all the screws that you can see are off the dryer. To get to the screws at the bottom, you'll need to lift the dryer up. Now, if you're working on your own, you can try to do it, but if you got a second person, that will go a long way to be able to do that. So if you can see here, there's one screw here on this side, and there'll be another screw on the other side as well. So take your time doing this and mindful not to drop the dryer. Once you're done with one side, then you can move on to the other side. To separate the side panel from the dryer, you need to pull it back and up, and it will come off. And I want to show you something. As soon as we pull this out, I can already see that there's a lot of lint in there. Just have a look at that. That's a lot of lint, which shouldn't be in the dryer, and that's a fire hazard. It's really a testament as to the cleaning regime that the person who had this dryer had. How often you clean the lint filter. When they do say clean it after every dry cycle, it means clean it out after every dry cycle. Otherwise, this is what happens. You can imagine all this lint gathering up in there. Have a look at that. That's gross. That's a lot of lint. You want to make sure that you're always checking your filter as well and clean this along. We're going to have a look at the other side as well. And as I turn it over, you can see here on the compressor there's a lot of lint, on the motor a lot of lint, on the capacitors a lot of lint. How this thing was working, I really wonder how it was working. No wonder all the sensors are covered in lint. So that's the problem with lint. If it starts building up in your machine, it's going to cover over electrical fittings and all kinds of sensors. And then this thing won't be able to do its job properly. So make sure you're always checking that filter and you're cleaning this as you go as well. Over the front, we want to remove the other panel. To remove it, we first need to remove the front panel that has the display, and you need your screwdriver, your flat screwdriver. There'll be some clips on the top that you need to unclip it to remove this fascia. And on the other side, there will be a clip that you need to push in to be able to pull out this whole fascia. So take your time, don't break anything, and be especially careful when you're poking and prodding your flat screwdriver into electrical components, as you might damage the wiring or the connector. Once you've got it loose, then disconnect. There'll be probably 1 or 2 wires connected to this fascia, to this board, and disconnect them. Then you can put them at the side, and then you can continue on with the rest of this repair. It's very important that you have this disconnected from power. As you can see that we are touching electrical components. 2 screws, one at the top and one on the bottom that you need to take off. You take them off using a T20 bit, and once you've got them off, then the panel will be ready to come off. To take it off, we are going to do likewise that we did on the other side. We are going to pull the panel out a bit and then pull it back, and you're going to sort of need to finesse it out, and then it will come out. It's pretty easy. Just make sure you take out the screw that was at the bottom of holding the bottom of the panel. I've already done that in the other step of this video. As you can see with this one, it's got lint as well, so make sure you clean the lint off that. We are going to separate this drum from the dryer, and to do that, you're going to need to turn this around like that so you guys can see what's happening. And so if you take out this panel, that will help us to take that drum out. But before we do that, there's electrical connections inside, and to remove that, you need to push. There's a panel here, you push it out, and I'll show you that on the side here, there's some, you can't really see because of all this lint. There's all this wiring, so you got to disconnect it from that main board, main back panel. And to do that, is these clips at the back. Take your flat screwdriver, push it in, and you're going to push this up. And that should help this to go up. Should. There we go. And your cabling is disconnected. Only thing that's left connected now is probably your electrical connections. And you want to remember where you took off these. Here you see that these 3 cables,
live, neutral, and earth. So you're gonna have to disconnect them from, it's actually only disconnect these two. Disconnect there's an earth here. You gotta wiggle it out. There might be like a little press. You can just take it out as one thing. Some of these things are a bit finicky to take out. There you go. He's out. So just pull him out. He'll come out. Another earth connected there. Just remove it. This cabling or this tubing that's still connected to this back panel, we want to make sure that we just disconnect it from there. We are going to remove this back panel. You'll lift it, and that just comes out just like that. And you can see all this lint behind here, not helping it to turn properly. Just be careful, all these edges are sharp. Basically how it works is this is your compressor, very much like in your fridge or in your car. That helps to move the gas through the system, and your motor there that drives the fan that blows the air and helps out through the system. So we're going to make sure that we clean out all this, take out all this lint, vacuum it out. Before you can do that, we're going to disconnect the spring that holds the motor, because we want to make sure that this thing disconnects properly and is going to be working good once we take it off. So this, just be careful when you're working around springs, because it's a lot of energy in these and you could easily hurt yourself. So just take your flat screwdriver, lift this up a bit and out, and then let's put him down. The reason why we're doing that is to loosen the tension on this belt. So you can see there's no more tension on that. And now if we, oh, that came off. Now if we turn this around, we can pull the drum out. Well, disconnect the belt first. That might help. Now it'll be a bit of a tight fit because it's also connected to the front. Connected at the front. So just pull it out, you won't break it. Heaps of lint that we do not even want to be in the system. Things not breathing properly. Clean all this lint. There's a panel that we're going to remove here, which is this panel. You want to take that panel off for better access to different things on here. And the only thing hindering us from taking that off is there is this wire here. Runs all the way back to the main board. So all we can do is we're going to disconnect it here. Now there's, if you get your flat screwdriver, you can just pinch that in and then pull this out. You want to make sure that you're doing this. You want to make sure that you're being gentle with these connectors, because once you break a wire on these, it's not fun to be putting all this back together. All right, we're taking those 3 zip ties. Just be careful when you're cutting them off, not to damage the wiring. And now all that's holding this thing is this pipe here, which we will just take off like that. There's one more here, which we'll take off like that. I'm gonna just vacuum all this dust and lint, make sure that it doesn't go in here, because we want to get in here. This is where the most important parts that we want to service are. And obviously, like, there's sensors that are like on this side, one just under there. All right, I've cleaned it up for now. Need to do a bit more cleaning, but for now it will work for what we need. We're gonna need to remove this bit to be able to remove that. So we're gonna remove a couple of screws, namely 1, 2, 3, and then another 4th one back there. There will be T15. Grab your T15 and remove those screws. So we have 1, 2, 3. Now there's one that's gonna be really hard to get at, which is behind here. I'm hoping to get my T15 in there and then a small ratchet in there with a swivel on it. That should solve my problem. So I'd recommend you get one of those, because that's, of all what we're doing, that is the trickiest bit, taking that one off. So that's worked for me. So put my ratchet there. You need one that's got a flexi head, then that way, flexi head like that, then that way you're gonna have a bit more flexibility into the angles that you're moving it and how you're working your screw out. So you'll come out. Alright, that should be loose enough. So to remove it, it's as simple as pulling it up. Oh, there's another one actually, so my bad. There's actually 5 of them. I thought that one would be hard. There's another one behind this wheel, just down there. You'll see it once you poke your head in there. That's going to be the tricky one. Oof. I forgot about that. Well, an easier way to remove that one is to remove this wheel. And this is probably a T40. So just proceed to take that off. So that will come off. I'll set it to the side. See all that lint that was behind it? Probably make this thing screech like crazy. So I'm gonna take this opportunity to clean all these parts. Pull it out just like that, and it comes out. Next thing you're gonna do is you're gonna remove this pipe here, because that goes into your drain. Just take it out. So this is held together by clips. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. A couple down the corner there. Want to make sure that we take a lot of care removing this. Yeah, they'll break when you open this, so that's all right. If you're too worried about it, you know, it's silicon, all this stuff, but there's really no need. So at the back here, these two at the back here are probably the most important ones that you don't want to break. The rest are pretty easy. Okay, take it from that side. This is where I was saying patience is key in this process. Otherwise, get frustrated. Just be careful while you're working around these lines, because they carry the gas. If you damage them and gets a small hole through it, all your gas is gone and it'll be bye-bye heat pump dryer. You just a paperweight. You want to make sure that you're not damaging it. Not damaging those. Take your time. There's no rush. There we go. That one there. Ah, beautiful. See why you don't poke your screwdriver in there trying, let me wedge it out, because you're gonna pop a hole through those. So it's probably where it gets a bit interesting, because there's some clips holding it at the front here. So you sort of have to sort of push this forward. Actually, there might be a screw down there. No. So we're gonna push this up, yeah, and out of the way. All right, here's what I was saying, that there's these clips here that are holding this in place. So you want to make sure that you're pushing this panel forward and then sort of sliding this out, and then it comes out. So over here we've got our evaporator and a condenser, and these are supposed to be clear with nothing obstructing them like lint. But if you have a look on this one, you can't even see the fins. It's almost like it's blanket, you know. So we are going to clean that out, make sure it's nice and clean, and then here at the front we want to make sure that that's nice and properly clean. So we're going to take care of that in a minute. All right, if you're careful enough, you can actually sort of try to lift that. Don't try to force it out, just lift it up a little bit, and that can come out, and you can actually have a look inside there. All right, just grab yourself a torch, and just want to make sure you guys can see what I'm seeing. There's not much on this one. It's pretty good, well, goodish. I'm gonna clean that up. And you're gonna have to be a bit careful. These things are sharp. These edges are sharp. You want to make sure that you're not like cutting yourself against these. So you want to make sure you clean all this lint. This is where you take your time and make sure it's nice and clean. So what I've done is I've grabbed myself like a cloth and some warm water. Do not heat this with like a high pressure like hose and try to hose all this stuff out, because you're going to put a hole through those things. They're pretty, like, they're not built for that high pressure. So make sure that we're cleaning it nicely. Yeah, good. Same things goes for this one as well. Clean it up properly and we'll be happy. So when you're done cleaning it up, so I've sort of cleaned mine up, cleaned best as I can. So I'll make sure these seals are nice and clean as well. Another thing that we want to make sure is that it's draining properly in these channels. So there's some channels there, you can see in there. That's where it drains out all the water through and comes back to the back of the dryer here where the pump is. So you want to make sure that's nice and clean, because if it's not clean, the water won't drain properly, and then this thing won't dry. Like the water won't drain. Like it's gonna be hard for this thing to do its job. So we want to make sure that all this is nice and clean. Nice and clean. I'm gonna hit mine with a bit of water. Make sure that it's nice and clean in there, because then if it's not clean, it's not gonna drain properly. So make sure you've cleaned everything. There we go. That looks good. Yep. Sweet. All right, time to put everything back together. Again, if you look at the price of a new heat pump dryer, you can easily see that this is definitely worth doing this yourself, because no one's going to do this much work for you. And these things are expensive to start with, so anything we can do to reduce that further cost is good. quick tip for you: if you have a second person, have them push this forward all the way, and then you can push this down, and then they can bring this back, and those clips will go back into place nice and proper. All right, so next stage is we're going to put back this self-cleaning hose or fitting, making sure that all these things are nice and clean, no dirt. And to put this back, there is a seal. So remember to put this seal if it popped off. Put back that seal. Clean it up. Alright. Looks good. Just position it into place. Just goes over that. This is probably the most important thing you need to do, making sure all these seals are back in place. Otherwise, this thing will start leaking. It'll be worse than you started off with. So you want to make sure that you are doing all this properly, and then just snaps into place. So before you go and put everything back together, you also want to check in here. That's your sensor for the drying. It sort of measures how much moisture is still in your drum. So I'm gonna check to make sure there's no lint inside there, and also that's gonna help me to put the screw that goes in there. This just pops out just like that. Ooh, lovely lint, you can see. So we want to put back all the screws that we took off. We are going to put them back. Right. Once you've got everything back together here, I want to make sure that this is all nice and tightly shut. And we're going to start putting things back. Remember to put this hose back, which is your drain hose for your dryer. Put that back. And the next thing is we're going to put back the drum. We're going to put the drum back in. To put the drum back in, you just have to be mindful that the drum goes in here at the front, all around there. And that's probably the hardest bit. And then pick up your drum. Remember to put the belt on with it as you put it on. And this just goes in. So it's half on. Just want to make sure that it's in. The wheels are holding it at the front. There we go, beautiful. So it's in now. We don't need to hook up the belt yet. Just make sure that it's in. You haven't forgotten it. Then we're gonna put the back panel. So just take a back panel and try to dry fit it. Make sure everything drops in place. There's some guides at the back here as to where it should sit, where everything sits. So you want to grab a couple of screws and just attach them at the bottom here to hold it in place. And you can also use this metal panel at the back here, but connect your electrical harness back, then you can sort of use this metal part to hold it in place over here, and that's it. That should help it to hold for now. Grab your T15 Torx bits or Torx screws and put in a couple of screws. So I've got one there, and I'm going to put another one in there. Beautiful. So once you've got that in there, just remember to route this in. Might as well do it now. This is what you can actually use for it to drain manually, like a washing machine, rather than collect the water in the tank. But if you make it drain manually, it's not going to be able to do its self-cleaning. So that's something you might have to consider, but that's all right. And at the back here, just remember there's all these pipes that you disconnected to make sure that you can take out the drum. We will be putting back the housing for the water drawer. Put back that panel for this housing chamber. You also want to make sure that it's clean as well, where it seals, get rid of any excess lint. And then you sort of fit it in. Pretty simple how to put it all back together. It's not as hard as it looks. Probably the first thing you do is reconnect all your hoses that do your drainage. So at the front here, at the side here, there's two. On the side there are two drain hoses. Remember to reconnect those. And at the back here, you can see there's this one. Remember to reconnect that one as well. So that just goes there. Beautiful. Making sure that there's no kinks in it. Everything's nice and secure. Beautiful. All right. So we want to make sure that we put in all the screws that we took off this back panel. Some of them give this thing structure. So we want to make sure that we're putting them in. There's two of them. So actually one over here and then one on this side. I'm going to make sure that we got all those in it. So as we started, the same thing you need is just to be patient, because if you rush, you forget to secure things and then it doesn't work properly. So once you've got that in place, you want to make sure you reconnect the electrical connection and you put it in the right way. There you go. Secure it with some zip ties. Otherwise, it's going to be just bouncing around. All right, now we want to put back the side panel. You're going to grab your side panel for the right side. So first get it behind this water cover, and then focus on getting it lined up with the 1, 2, 3, 4 tabs. Then just push it in. That's it. Beautiful. It's in, and we can put in a couple of screws to start building the structure of the dryer. So I'm going to grab a couple of T20 screws in the front here. At the back, we want to make sure that we reconnect the drum properly. So you put in this center bit and the 4 screws that came with it. So the way this goes on is there's 2 that go side by side here, and another 2 that will go with this bit. So we want to make sure that everything's in there nice and proper. And before we forget, we are going to put in our circlip, which is going to hold everything together. To put that in, line it up, and then just sort of push it in, and it'll lock into place. And just pull it in. These bits. Beautiful. And we're going to put back the back panel, which is this bit here. Make sure it's clean before you put it in. Ensure it's sealing properly. You don't want to get any water leaks. So what you can actually do is get some silicone and then just put some silicone here at the bottom. To reconnect the belt, it's pretty simple. You sort of try to line it up with the wear marks on the dryer drum. To reconnect the belt, first it goes over this wheel, and then it goes over the metal rod, so it's up and over. So it's going behind that wheel. You can see behind, but not behind, but sort of in front of this wheel, and then it goes. There will be grooves on this spindle which you line up, and of course now the task is, when it's like that, then it's under tension, and what brings the tension is your spring. Just be careful when you put it up. This is not too bad, and don't get hurt. All right, so you want to give it a test by putting it like that and make sure that it's in the right grooves and it's not like to the side, because you don't want to discover you've put it on the wrong way once you stand on the dryer. So just rotate it a couple of times, and that's showing that it's in the right position. So the next step now is pretty easy. We're going to connect our electrical connections that we took off before, the earth, the live, and the neutral. So you're going to grab your electrical cable, the one you took off, and you're going to patch it through the hole, just like so. And this green bit goes and sits there. That's sitting over there. Then remember, brown goes closest to the back, and blue goes in the middle. And then, of course, don't forget your earth. Connect connected here, and the other earth also connected. So at the front as well, if you have a look, there is a screw we need to put back there. We're going to put that in there before we forget. And we might as well put back the main board. Might as well put it back on. We're going to put back the side bits. Now, as you can see from here, there's these bits, 1, 2, 3, that go inside this one. So you want to make sure that you've lined it up properly first for it to go in nicely. Otherwise, there'll be gaps and it won't go in properly. So take your time and get it all lined up. All right. And then once it's all lined up, give it a bit of a nudge, and that's in. You can put your screws. Let's finish putting up the back pieces. Get your T25 screws, put them in. Beautiful. And at the bottom, remember there are T25, the longer ones go at the bottom where there's these gray bits. You want to make sure that you're not mixing them up. Same thing goes for the other side. Move over to the front where we're going to reconnect the main board. So first things first, connect the electrical connections or connection. That's there. Then reattach the clip. Holds it in place. That's it, beautiful. To put this back in, just put everything in its grooves. If you haven't put it in properly, it won't go in. But if everything is in its groove, it goes in. So at the front, remember there's 1, 2, 3 screws, the long ones that you need to put in. 1, 2, 3. I love it when you don't have leftovers. No leftover screws. Means you've done a proper job. So put those 3 in. Yeah, put those 3 in. Remember at the bottom we took out some screws. Of course we can put back the water drawer. This goes in like that, but there's some 2 screws that we took off the bottom on the sides, if you remember at the start of the video, the ones where we had to tilt it. So go ahead and tilt yours and put those screws back in there. And the final bit is we're going to put back the 2 screws that hold the top. So to put back the top, you just sort of slide it in like that, and there's 2 screws that go on it, one on the left and one on the right at the back. Now, moment of truth. Does it turn on after you've put it apart? Does it work? Plug it in, turn it on, and press start. Beautiful. Quiet as ever. It's good. And that's how you service these. That's how you clean the lint and make sure that it's nice and clean, and then there's nothing obstructing the flow of air. And hopefully yours is now drying properly. If you have any questions, or if you ever get it stuck at any point during this repair, be sure to leave a comment in the comment section below, and I will endeavor to get back to you. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you on the next one.